Hi everyone. Can you guys see me? Hey, can you guys see me? Hi.
Yes,
Hi Amit. How are you? Great. Nice. Okay. Oh, nice. I can see your messages now. So, guys, some of you like Amit, I already know. Why don't you guys tell me about like what is the current stage you guys are right now at when it comes to podcasting? Do you guys already have a podcast? You guys are starting, and let me just see, and I'll just read through. And if there's any expectations you have, probably you can put it in the chat box, and I'll just quickly look. Let me just see. Okay, I can see here. Hi. Okay. Christina wants to start a podcast. Priya launched first episode. Let me just see. Yes, we can hear. Okay, that's fine. Amit, I'm excited too to share my information with you. I have Mohan. I want to start podcast recording. I have start podcast record. Okay, you've done one podcast till now. Ask Tavish show if I'm correct. Planning to start one. Okay. I want to start a podcast. I launched first episode of my podcast. Katha Weaver. Oh, that's an interesting name, Priya. I have a podcast and looking forward to grow the audience. That's exactly why we are here, Suhasini. Argya, if I'm pronouncing your name correct. Stories from Upanishada. Oh, that's nice. That's such an interesting concept. Keen to start a podcast, Manish is saying on sales. I already have an active Insta LinkedIn account. Okay. Jaideep have scripted and co-hosted a few podcasts, hoping to launch my solo podcast this year. Season one being researched and scripted. That's great. Harjeet wants to start now. There are beginners, then Bhanu, 10 episode, 3K listens. That's not bad. Telugu Sanchari. Sanchari, if I'm again pronouncing correct, you guys can correct me, please. Started a podcast but dropped it due to low publicity. I feel you, God's power. I feel you. Expectation, monetization, and chartables. Okay, Hindi stories podcast, episodes completed. Poonam is saying, Samir want to start and grow. Great. Nishant, I am hosting 11 to 12 podcasts. Wow, that is huge. I want hosting it. Wow, I want to grow listeners and monetize them. Want to start a podcast. Want to start a podcast. Sandeep has shared the link also. सुनते रहिए लेख राज. Okay. Once upon a tide. Asha has shared her podcast too. I'm hosting 10, 11 to 12 podcasts. Okay. Geeta is saying Zindagi Matters, mental health podcast. That's such an interesting name and such a brilliant space to be in. Okay. Tavish has replied, Ask Tavish, total 276 episodes and it has 88K listens. You guys are seasoned. I'm so happy. Okay. All right. Great. So, let me know, guys, if we can start or are we waiting for a few people? Just give me 1 second. Srijani, let me know if we can start or do you want to wait? Meanwhile, I'll just introduce myself.
yeah, maybe we can wait, right? And people are still joining. Maybe we can wait for 5 more minutes.
Great. Guys, can you unmute yourself? Acha, you. Okay. And some, Srijani, do they have access that they can unmute themselves?
Yeah, they can raise their hands if someone wants to ask a question. No, they can raise their hands and I can.
Perfect. 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 So, guys, if anybody would like to talk about their podcast, since because we are waiting for others to join, I'll be happy to hear about your podcast or what is it that you're planning to start. So, yeah, you can raise your hand. Bhanu's raised her hand. Okay.
Yeah, Bhanu, you can unmute yourself and you can speak.
Bhanu, I would love to hear. Um, Bhanu, is there a problem? You can drop it in the chat if you can't unmute yourself. Okay. Ma'am, please increase volume. Oh, 1 second.
May I speak? Arghya Goswami here.
If that's okay with Srijani, I'm okay. Meanwhile, Bhanu's figuring out why don't you go ahead and start? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Shall I? Shall I? Okay. Hi, my name is Arghya Goswami, and
Hi.
my podcast is Stories from Upanishad,
Yeah.
and it's already 17 episodes old now. I started, I think, last September or something. Hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Thanks. Okay, so basically, my podcast is about the tales and stories which is kind of hidden within Upanishads. Like Upanishad is a huge,
Of
there are
course.
many Upanishads, right? So what I'm doing that since I know a bit of Sanskrit and also have a huge library of all these Vedic texts and scriptures, so I
Hmm.
thought that it's a real it's a good idea to basically figure basically extract out those tales and stories from
Correct.
Upanishad because it all
Correct.
talks about the spirituality, talks about the supreme being, our self-realization, about Atman, about Brahman, etc. So these stories gives us like various it shows us various facets of life basically, and
Correct.
so I believe these are like kind of a foundational building blocks for all of us as human being. And these stories are actually not heard too many times, not popular as such, but since it is hidden and deep into the text, so it's better to like extract them and bring it forward so that people can gain
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what
Correct.
my whole idea is.
Okay. So, since you mentioned that it's 17 episodes old, now
Right.
can you give me an idea like what are your general per episodic listens if you're comfortable?
Sure, definitely. Let me open the analytics right away. Just hold on. Okay, so
Just give me a rough idea.
right. So the total I have got like 11.6K streams and gross listens around 8,876.
That's really nice. Now, which is like brilliant. Now, can you tell me like what is the end goal with this podcast? What is it that you're expecting, and why did you join this particular workshop? What is it that you're expecting out of this workshop, and also what is the end goal with the podcast?
Okay, let me first tell you about my end goal of my podcast. So, end goal is to, basically yes to decipher these tales which is hidden within these text and
Of
bring
course.
in front of everybody. So
Hmm.
that's my first end goal, so that people are aware of these stories
Hmm.
which is actually lost. We don't discuss
Hmm.
these stories
Hmm.
too much in our day to day. Even
Hmm.
they are very different from anything else. So for end goal is to bring out these hidden texts in front of the audiences or to the
Hmm.
listeners so that they can gain something as a human being. They can, because these are
Of
the
course.
basic foundational building blocks of human life. That's it. So
Hmm.
this is the end goal. Number two is like, yes, to educate a lot of people, because in each of my stories I ask three questions, and I have created a small kind of a fan base also. So people do write to me as a fan email, and we discuss lot of things. It's more than answers, is more than questions actually, like more
Hmm.
questions than answers, because these are all like because we are all discoverers. We are all in a journey
Right.
to discover ourselves. That's what it is. So I do like discuss a lot of these topics with my listeners.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm a sadhu baba or anything like that.
No, no, I get
I'm
it. I get that.
so, but it is like I do definitely try to help them, and as per my understanding or my
Of course.
contemplation of these stories. So this is the end goal. Now what I am looking forward from this workshop is basically three things. Number one is how to increase the audience base
Hmm.
more, like how do you actually market it better.
Hmm.
Number two is definitely monetization, and number
Of course.
three is like how can well, basically, although I have a chartable link, but I'm not understanding actually how it will help me, and how to basically get
Of course.
yeah. So that's what it is. These are the three things I'm expecting.
Okay, great. A lot of people, a lot of you guys are saying that my volume is low. Is that a genuine problem? Because we did do a test. Rajani, can you help me? Is it like, can you guys hear me properly?
I can hear you properly.
It's
Yes,
absolutely fine, Neeti.
Yes, ma'am.
yes, Nikki, it's absolutely fine.
Absolutely perfect voice.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. That's really sweet of you. So, and then guys, you guys need to check at your end because I think I am pretty audible. So, anybody else who would like to share, we'll wait. Srijani,
I,
we'll wait for another 3 minutes and then we'll
Hi,
start.
Can
Yes,
I?
yes, yes.
hi, Niti. This is Akash. I'm
Hi,
audible.
Akash.
no,
Tell me. Yeah, yeah, you are.
Hello everyone. My name is Akash Zakat, and I have a YouTube channel called The Limitless Experience, where I make vlogs, travel vlogs, and I have started the
Nice.
podcast also in 2020, in August of 2020, called The Limitless Podcast, where I
Hmm.
invite guests, and I have an interview based podcast, and
Hmm.
I have around 11 episodes, and I have interviewed people like Abhishek Kar, who is an angel investor and a YouTuber. Also, you might know him as a trader. I have also interviewed Taleha Khan, who was the winner of first Voice of Anchor, and also
Taleha is a part of this conversation right now.
Taleha, if you are listening, this is Akash. Hope you remember me.
yeah, hi Akash.
Hi, Talia. After that, I have also participated in this Voice of Anchor program, but I left that after 3 or 4 episodes because of some work, and I got involved in my office work. Because of that, I didn't pay
Hmm.
much attention to that.
Hmm.
So my end goal from this workshop basically is to find motivation, because it's been around 8 months that I have recorded
Of
a
course.
podcast or released a podcast. That is my end goal. I want to find motivation. I want to meet and have conversations with other podcasts, other fellow podcasters, and
Mhm.
also network basically.
Great. All right. We will definitely cover that. Quickly, we'll move on to next person. And guys, let's try and keep it
Can
short
I?
so that everybody get a chance. And by 4:15, Srijani, do you think we can start, or you would like to wait for a little longer before you guys start? Let me just confirm.
No, I guess we
Ma'am,
can
can I?
start. We already have around 70
So,
participants, so we can start.
Okay, so let's start at 4:15. Quickly, we'll have two more people discussing about their end goals, and we'll start. Who's
yeah,
going next?
This is
ma'am,
hi. This is
Niti, ma'am, this
Prakhar.
is part of a small question I have, a little tech related.
Okay.
While I'm really enjoyed creating my podcast, I have a Hindi stories podcast
Mm-hmm.
named Katha Manjusha. So
Okay.
while recording, only 6 slots we have there. So sometimes
Six slots where? Can you tell me?
uh, while we are recording, so it is inbuilt system that we can record only 6 slots within the 6 slots and upload there. This is the
Okay.
system.
Okay, that could be because the recording software you're using, it's the problem there. There are various other softwares. I don't know what software are you using to record.
For this Hubhopper podcast. Hubhopper
You're using Hubhopper for recording or for publishing?
uh, for recording, and when I upload my files also, then
Okay.
only 6 slots are available there. If we pre-recorded music one file, if I upload,
Okay, got it.
then a story part, then some other part. So only six part is available there. Are you getting my point?
So, what I'll do is, Srijani, can you take this up with separately with the tech team?
Yes, yes. Just can you please text me over WhatsApp if you have my number, or if you are connected on our groups, or uh, or else you can leave your number on the chat. We'll
Yeah,
connect
yeah,
with you separately.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. We'll discuss
yeah.
later. Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Okay,
Hi,
great.
Fine.
All
hi,
right.
this
Thank
is
you so much.
Prakhar.
Guys, one last person, whosoever is going to start, needs to start quickly
I'm
because
Prakhar.
who's doing it?
I'm Prakhar.
Prakhar. Hi, Prakhar. And those who've
So
not got their chances, we will try and do it in between, or in the end, we'll have a Q&A. Prakhar, you need to be really quick. What is your
yeah,
expectation and
just
what are you doing?
my expectation is that as I have like a plan to start our podcast for
Hmm.
those persons who having a communication gap with their parents for
I get it.
various reasons, and because of that they will really take a harsh steps, because recently I lost one of my friend. He has committed some suicide because of a
That's
communication gap with her father. And but I am not getting an idea where I can publish my podcast, so get engaged more and more persons to share my views, because at one part words are the greatest healer, and on another part words are the greatest ammunition to hit anyone very versely as well.
So, Prakhar, do you already have a podcast or you want to
So
start one?
I am starting one.
Okay, great. All right. So, I figured out like you have an idea what you want to talk about, but you don't know how to do it. This is what you want in this
Yes,
workshop, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, great. Guys, let me just get to the introductions now. And Prakhar, first and foremost, I'm really sorry I got to know about your friend. And I get it when you say there's a gap between communications between the parents and also their like kids. I get it. But I mean, and it's a beautiful thought as well. So we'll take the rest of it during the presentation and during the discussion. So
Sure, sure.
thank you. Guys, try and keep yourself on mute if there's someone who would like to talk and raise their hand. And then Srijani can give you the access. Okay, let me introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Neeti. I run a podcast production company named as Odd Story. Odd Story is a pandemic baby. We launched in January 2021, and we already have around 10 podcasts out. Having said that, there are a couple of podcasts which have more than 1 million downloads. What's my expertise and where is my background? I'll tell you. I started around 15 years ago as a radio jockey, worked in the audio industry straight for around 7 to 8 years. And that is when then I moved on to sales and marketing side. And while I was doing that, always felt that audio has always been my first love. That is when I realized that now I know how to do sales and marketing, and podcasting is this industry which is growing. That is when I felt like I can merge the two and probably build a brand out there, or probably find my calling out there. So that is how Odd Story came into being. We've done work with some content creators like Simi Goraya. Then we worked for brands like BuzzFeed India. We've done their first ever podcast. So these are the few people we've worked with. We worked with India's first female professional poker player in launching her podcast, and now we'll be doing season two, which is going to be a sponsored season with the organization like Pokerbazi. So these are a few things. Why am I referring to is because I hope with my background, I may be able to resolve some of your problems. So I think we can just begin right now. And guys, if you have any question, you can park it in the chat section, and we'll do that later once we are done. So I'll just start the presentation now. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Let me just start. All right. I hope you guys can see my presentation. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. We will just quickly begin. So, once again, I've already introduced myself. So, today we are majorly going to talk about content strategy, marketing strategy, and monetization. It is more towards the people who've already launched their podcast, but those who've not launched and they're still in contemplating their ideas, we'll try and deal if there's anything missed in the Q&A session. So, as I mentioned, the agenda is very clear because all of us, we always get stuck in one loop, that is monetization of a podcast. And someone mentioned about, I don't find the motivation. You'll find the motivation when there is monetization, because I understand the amount of effort each one of us put out to put out one single episode of the podcast. So, as I mentioned, the agenda is clear, right from niche, wherein we talk about how to find the idea on which you can create a podcast, content strategy, how should your podcast look like, what should be the tonality, intro, outro, everything, length, schedule. Then marketing, because we all come from limited resources, but whatever we have, whatever limited marketing resources we have, how we can optimize them, use them to the best potential. Then, of course, monetization and the methods. And most importantly, we are going to do that using an example, which is like touchwood, one of my most successful story when it came to podcast production. This was our third ever project, but it turned out to be huge because that podcast got 1 million downloads within 4 months of its launch. And that podcast definitely got deals. Some of them were barter, and some of them were monetization brand deals as well. So that is what we will talk about today. First and foremost, let's talk about for all those people who want to start. A lot of time people come to me and say, Neeti, we want to start a podcast, but we don't know where to begin with. And I totally get it, because we all believe like, okay, I have little bit of knowledge on this segment, little bit of knowledge on that segment, but I don't know where to begin. So it's very simple how to find your niche. First, see your personal branding. What do you want to be known as? What category would you like to be associated with? It could be something related to your brand. When I say brand, for example, this particular example only, this was an influencer, Simi Gorai. She's a beauty influencer, but she was done and dusted with beauty industry. So she wanted to pivot and explore, and that is how we got into altogether a new niche, but she wanted to create her brand there. So we need to see, and sometimes some people already have a brand which is already set. For example, if I give you The Barber Shop by Shantanu Deshpande, in that case, we all know what was Bombay Shaving Company, but nobody knew a lot about the founder. So he decided he wanted to build personal brand, wherein which is based more on entrepreneurship, startups, and also on angel investment. And that is how this particular podcast came into being. Okay, and certainly there are branded podcasts as well. So there's an example of a particular client of mine. The podcast name is Damn Good Marketing Podcast. There, it was the host was the marketing strategist. She already had a marketing agency, but she wanted more visibility. She wanted more clients. And that is how the Damn Good Marketing Podcast came into being, where they spoke about her expertise, which was digital marketing, content virality. Every episode was dealing one or the other aspect of marketing. That is how where you work around the brand. Skill set, of course, someone like me, if I would like to start a podcast, the first thought that came to my mind was like, why shouldn't I talk about podcasting? But then I realized there are already so many people doing it, so I did not pursue that idea. But having said that, someone has skills on digital marketing, someone has clear skills on business growth, is this person is a business coach, then you can do that. But most importantly, this last point of mine matters a lot, that is differentiator. You need to find your POV, your point of view. Otherwise, wherever you will try and find out, create a podcast, you'll see, oh, there's already content created on that. But you need to find your POV. As I clearly mentioned, the podcast niche could be around your brand or your personal brand. It could be around your strengths or expertise. It has to be relevant to your audience. We will all talk about these things in detail. It could also be around your hobbies, your passion, or your skill, which will eventually help you grow your personal brand. And most importantly, when you're finding your niche, you need to see your competition, which a lot of people don't do. They just directly jump into the idea. But I don't think so. That's the right way to get into any kind of content, be it a podcast, be it a YouTube channel, or anything. You need to see how are you adding the value. Okay, as we discussed the whole of this, I will try and do with examples because it's very important to understand someone else's journey and you can learn a lot from that. As we spoke about Simi Said What, Simi Said What, as I mentioned, Simi Guraya was and is a beauty influencer. Her complete thing was around beauty and fashion. But during the lockdown, she realized that, she has already saturated, and at that is the point when she wanted to pivot and enter a new space. When she started thinking around what is it that she's good at, she called me immediately and she asked me, Neeti, let me tell you, what I can do is I know that I can talk to people. I have so many stories to share. She knew that she had so many stories to share. And if you guys have heard of this podcast, anything about this podcast, the content is stories. She genuinely meant stories. She genuinely meant her personal stories related to her intimate relationships. And she had the courage to share that in public. That is her whole idea when she came to me. Then we started discussing about the growth of this podcast. And we realized that in India, there was no such podcast. So we knew we could untap this particular market very easily.
Neeti,
Yeah.
just give me a second. So many people are complaining that your presentation got stuck in the first slide itself. Can you please reshare it again?
1 second. Uh, I'm moving. Is it moving right now for you guys or not?
No, no.
No, ma'am.
Let me just
No,
share
ma'am,
it.
no.
I'm really sorry. Let me just share it again. Okay. Guys, can you see my screen now?
No, ma'am.
No.
No, not yet.
1 second. Let me present again. 1 second. Okay. Is it better now? Can you guys
Yeah,
see
we can
it?
see your screen. We can see your screen, but it's
Okay, great. I'll just move a few slides ahead and you guys can give me a heads up if you guys can see the change. Can you?
Yes.
yes.
Yes, now we can see. Yes.
Yes, now we are able
Yes.
to see.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. Sujani, if there's any tech issue, I would like a heads up from you. Just stop me in between, cut me in between, and tell me just the way you did
Sure.
right now. Thank you so much. Okay, so here we were talking about, and also, guys, if you're stuck anywhere and you feel that the point is not clear, uh, you can just break the flow, but try and keep it really short because I have a lot of content which I would like to cover, and we have limited time. Okay, great. So, as I mentioned, this particular content creator, she already came with 135K followers of hers. She had a very closed and a small community. But she knew that there is enough she's already done in the space of beauty, and she wanted to pivot, as we discussed. As I mentioned, her content was explicit. This was about, let's just say, other relationships and she has had. And we figured out like nobody was doing that kind of content in India, while there were some international podcasts related to that. And when she reached out to me, she said like, hey Neeti, I have many stories to share. Do you think I can create a podcast? That is where we were stuck. Do you think 10 to 15 stories could be created into a podcast, which could be an endless number of seasons? And the answer from my side to her was no. We needed to do something more. So that's how content strategy is what we started working on. Okay, so as we were talking about her idea, as I mentioned, she already had some stories which she wanted to share. It took me 2 minutes to say that, she wanted to share her sexual encounters, because it is something which not everybody is comfortable. Some of you would feel like, what is Neeti talking about? But what I'm trying to tell you is about a particular genre when you select. So there was taboo related to that, and we weren't sure whether people would accept mentioned, there was nothing in the Indian market to that, but there were some international podcasts like Call Her Daddy. That is what we figured out. Like there were some, but they were a mix of both stories as well as interviews. Then we did a small research survey with her limited audience only and my limited, I would say, community. We asked people, what if we try and do something of this sort? What if we do a podcast where someone is talking about her personal stories? And we reached out to certain content creators also, asking if they would be interested. If we call them on the show, would they be comfortable doing that? That is when we realized that people were open to such conversations. But if we do it in a dignified manner, if we are try to if we try and do it in a manner which is more acceptable, that gave us the idea about the tonality also, and that also helped us find our target audience. Then when I said tonality, a lot of people said that it could be in the form of sex education. Some of them, most of them were men, by the way, just putting it out there. They said like, hey, it could be in the form of sex education. But when we were creating the concept, we knew from day one it could not be in the form of sex education, because the host is not an expert. So we knew we could not put out content because the host is not a doctor. She's not a medical practitioner who could give you the right kind of information. All she knew was that she wanted to build a community of women who could easily talk about their needs, their pleasure, and they could easily talk about their preferences in life. So then we realized the only way of doing that is that she share her stories and people talk about certain topics. And that's when we reached out to a few people and see if they would want to become the guest. And let me tell you, she being someone who had already had 135K followers, we sent at least 100 emails and only 5 people were interested. Of course, the content was such. And that will happen for each one of you as well. When you would start and you would like to, get, for example, if it's an entrepreneurial podcast and you would like to get someone like Aman or Anupam Mittal on your podcast, or someone like Variko on your podcast, it will not happen from day one. They will not entertain you. But eventually, if we grow the podcast, if the conversations are interesting, eventually that will happen probably on your 50th or 60th episode, because it has happened for my clients. Now we will speak about the format of the podcast. You have to, while you are designing the concept, it is very important for you to figure out how do you want to do it. Is it that you want to do an interview podcast? Is it that you want to do a solo podcast? Is it a hybrid podcast? Or some people do panel podcasts as well. Now, in India, especially, I felt a lot of people think that they can do interview podcasts because it is very easy. If Ranveer Alabadia can do, so can we. We will invite guests and we'll try and create a motivational podcast. Do the research. There are more than 10,000 podcasts which are only and only based on motivational conversations. Do you really think you will be able to stand out? Do you really think that's the best way to do it? While I do understand it is one of the easier way to do it because the onus of putting out content is not totally on you, it's on your guest as well. Your role is majorly doing stronger research on your guest, and the rest the guest can take care of if you get a good orator as a guest. But guys, is this the only way to do it? I mean, how many people you must have heard asking someone like a big guest on board and asking them, how was your journey? It's very easy to call a Shamani and ask, like, how Raj Shamani and ask, how was your journey? But how many people have already done that? That is what matters. But if you are a great conversationist, if you think that you can bring out the instances which nobody has ever done, someone like Samdesh, Unfiltered with Samdesh, if you guys know, he is great with questions. He's got politicians, he's got entrepreneurs, and the questions he asks. The same people, maybe 10,000 people must have interviewed the same guest, but it's the quality of the conversation there. Instead of probably doing a motivational podcast, find out something else. Maybe your motivational podcast is not a podcast for everybody. Maybe your motivational podcast is based on teenagers' mental health only. It is in the space of motivation, it is in the space of education, but then it's fixed. Your target audience is very clear. In this case, it is teenagers. Define your audience clearly when, and then choose your format accordingly. As I mentioned, in Simi's case, we chose hybrid as the model. Again, hybrid is clearly inviting guests, asking them to share their stories and sharing personal stories as well. When I say hybrid, there are again a lot of ways of doing that. Some of my clients, they do twice in a week. One is the interview, the second would be their solo story of 10-15 minutes. In Simi's case, we did 4 interviews, 3 to 4 interviews, then a solo episode of hers, which was around 15 to 20 minutes. So it's something which you have to decide. Having said that, we will discuss about the timings and the schedule as well. I already mentioned about your target audience. It is so very important to find your target audience. When you do that, you need to do your research on a macro and a micro level. Now, what is macro? Macro is who all are already making podcasts there in the macro niche. As I mentioned, it could be motivational, it could be comedy, self help, anything you choose. You need to see how many podcasts are already there. There's no need to have a number there, but you'll just need to do some research on the app. You'll figure out how many people are already doing it. You will also find the hero creators there. For example, for motivation, let's keep it very simple. Ranveer Alavadia is the first guy you will hear. Then you have Jay Shetty, who's doing it on international level. Then there's Raj Shamani as well. If it is clearly entrepreneurship, we know Shantanu Deshpande is already doing it. Then there's 100x entrepreneurs. There's so many podcasts which are already there in those categories. Find who are the hero creators. Okay, but all of these, just note down, create a list of your macro content. Then who are you making your podcast for? Just the macro level thing. Try and define the age group of the person. We also call it, in marketing world, we call it ideal customer avatar. We just change it to ideal listener avatar in podcasting industry. What do you expect them to do? Are they job people? Are they startup owners? Are they seasoned entrepreneurs? Or are they Gen Zs? Then what is the age group of those people you're trying to look for? Is it gender specific? Is it majorly for women? Is it for men? What is it that you're looking for? Try and define your target audience on a macro level. Just research the categories also on the macro level. And then we will narrow it down. That is your micro, clean, deeper research, where I say who's the hero creator there, and also where I say like how many of them are already there. We cannot count because you may see it on Indian level, but you cannot see it on international. There's so many of them. But one trick which I follow with my clients is go on the app, type the category of podcast. There are so many podcast apps like Apple Podcast, Spotify, JioSavan, Ghana. Go there and then see how many podcasts are there. Try and listen to a few of them, see what ratings they have, see if they have some reviews. That will help you to see how popular that particular podcast is. Then what kind of content are they putting? What is, are they only catering the macro niche? Then that gives you an opportunity, because then you have subcategory there. For example, if you notice, some of you have already launched the podcast, so you know categorizing a podcast is a very, very important thing. If you don't clearly categorize your podcast, if you don't define your podcast, then it becomes very difficult for you to sustain in that category. Then ranking becomes a problem. So again, taking the example of SSW, which is a short form of semi said what only. For SSW, if like you and me, if we had to categorize the podcast, we all would have done it in society and culture, probably under personal journals or relationship. But we figured out there were already so many podcasts in that category. That is when we realized that our tonality is fun. It's like we want people literally to be laughing all across the episode. They should be literally in splits when they're listening to the episode. So then we thought, can we put it in the category of comedy? Because it is comedy. And I'll tell you in detail how we could place it there. Not only then subcategory wise, we decided how about if we put it under comedy interviews, because the interviews were also happening there. So there was a variation, if you notice, in this category. Why did we do that? We realized there were not a lot of podcasts in comedy. There was, of course, a Cyrus Brocha there who was leading it, and then there was Varun's podcast, Internet Said So. Of course, they were there, but none of them were like podcasts which were in the top 10. They were not ranking at that time, they were not ranking in top 10 overall ranking lists. So we saw an opportunity there, and that is where very smartly we placed our category in comedy. While ideally our category was very clear, it was society and culture, and it would have probably gone under personal journals. But we played smart here. So all of these things come under your content strategy. You need to think deeply. What category are you choosing? Also, eventually later also you can change the category. After 10 episodes also you can change the category, but it's better if you think of all of these things when you're launching. Another thing, when it comes to target audience, this is something which has worked in my favor whenever I'm launching our podcast, which is our original, or whenever we're doing a client's podcast, is basically using friends and family. Now, how do we use that? I told you, right? You need to create your ideal listener avatar. When you create your ideal listener avatar, just go on your phone book, or probably, in your community, and see, do you have people who can be your exact ideal listeners? If yes, 2 to 3 people, speak to them. Tell them this is what you're trying to do. Vet your idea with them. Share the entire concept you've thought of. See what they feel about that. And not only that, you can also what one second. What you can also do is share your concept with them. See what they feel about it. Later, also share your mocks. Mocks are very important. Do not just figure out a microphone and start doing recording on day one. That's not the right approach. You need to do certain mocks which you don't upload anywhere, which is only and only for your close community to come back and give feedback. Trust me, releasing, after working with, say, almost 100 clients, including podcast workshops, and also almost working with 25 brands, we still do mocks. We still do mocks because mocks are the best way to get your feedback. Mocks are the best way to refine your content. Okay. So now you know your concept, you know what is the content you're trying to put, you know your category. But now we will work on the tonality side of it. Tonality is very important, is how you deliver your content. Again, tonality depends on a lot of things. Number one, what is your content and what category it belongs to. Is this content for Gen Zs? Is this content for, say, is this content for startup owners? Is this content purely based on self-help? Is this content is where you are giving gyan because you come from an expertise? What is this content about? Why have I written these three things is because we are going to take their examples. When it comes to Voice with Variko, Ankur Variko has established a position where he talks slow. He has a special way of delivery because his logic is when he talks, you feel that you slowed down. You try and listen to him because he comes with that personality that when I talk to you with experience, be it entrepreneurship and be it someone who's gaining experience over the period of time, be it someone who comes with age and experience. So he's chosen this tonality where he's very quiet. He makes sure that when you listen to him, you also become calmer in his approach. That's why he talks slowly. The flow is not as fast as I am right now. He's slow. That's his approach. Because also, while the content is for Gen Zs, the age group he try and target is around, say, 18 to 25 or 30. But what he's trying to establish there is that I am someone who comes from experience and knowledge. So he follows that tonality. For Simi said what, we knew that content was explicit. If she tried to do it in that basic manner, trust me, the backlash she would have got, or we would have got as a team, would have been huge. That is when we decide that this needs to be fun. This needs to be comic. This needs to be like she can slip on her, like her first story was my threesome story. Like that explicit her content was, which definitely worked when it comes to a thumbnail or a title. But when people heard the story, they didn't realize that she spoke about an encounter of threesome because it was so much fun. There were so many anecdotes when everybody was laughing. I remember like when my team edited that show every time, and trust me, we do it like 6 to 8 uh, times we have to go back to board and do it again. We were all laughing all the time. That was the whole idea, and that was the exact feedback we got. We got people saying we didn't realize it was about that. We forgot about the threesome thing completely. We were only focusing on the story. That is how we developed it, and that is how we worked with her. We did at least 15 sessions on the same story with her, and trust me, a lot of time we felt, now we've heard it so many times, do can we bring the novelty when we finally record it for the first time? So those were the things we worked with. That is what we figured out in her tonality, because it was a video podcast as well. Again, in her case, tonality mattered because we wanted it to give it a feel that it is a casual chat. It's just two friends talking. So we didn't want to do it in a studio. We wanted to do it in a place where it should actually feel that people are sitting in her living room. So we decided we'll do it in Airbnbs. Yes, we did the recording in Airbnbs instead of studios because we wanted people to feel that she's doing it at her home. This is her own living room where she's inviting people and talking while maintaining the whole thing with microphones and has made Indian broadcasting scene a thing where a couch and two microphones which stand has become a thing. That actually became a thing after SSW came into being. Before that, people used to do it on a table and a chair. Now, another example is Odd Stories, which is Odd Stories' first original podcast.
So sorry to interrupt you, Niti. Just
Yeah, yeah,
a quick question. As
yeah.
you have mentioned one that Airbnb something, right? So could you
Hmm.
please provide me a specific view what exactly that Airbnb is?
Oh, Airbnbs are those houses now where you rent. You go with your
Oh,
friends and you rent. That is Airbnb. Those are
okay.
like flats which you can rent, where people actually go for partying, and or sometimes, people, they don't prefer hotels, they like boutique homestay kind of a vibe. Then they book Airbnbs is the thing which we like. We all book those flats when we go outstation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No worries. So when we were talking about odd stories, how did odd stories concept came into being? We decided that people still didn't know about podcasting, and people thought it's very difficult. It's too technical to create a podcast. We started doing some road activities with people. Road activities means that going to them, giving them a microphone, and asking them, "Hey, do you know what is a podcast? Do you listen to podcasts?" And we realized that their knowledge, while you guys, I'm so happy 70 of you turned out, they had very limited knowledge. And I'm talking about Bombay. While I was going to Marine Drive, I was going to places like BKC, which is an industrial hub, all of these places, and so many Gen Zs, so many millennials who were educated, but they didn't know about podcasts. They've heard about podcasting, but they never used to hear podcasts, because some of them felt that video is better, some of them felt that they've understood the medium but they didn't know where to begin. Some of them also mentioned that they liked and they wanted to start but they don't know where to begin. That's how odd stories came into being. We thought everybody has stories. While we always look for stories with, I would say, celebrities or influencers or content creators, but we realize people like you and me, we also have stories. We all have that one story etched in our heart. It could be from college. It could be our breakup story. It could be our love story. It could be a professional journey, some big deal we've cracked. We all have stories. That is how we thought, like, what if instead of they coming to us, we go to them and ask them if you have a story to share. So it was a road activity extension of what I used to do in my radio days, going to people, asking them questions. And then we realized for that tonality again, what kind of stories we needed. We needed fun stories, we needed quirky stories, or we needed relatable stories. In relatable, there came breakup stories also, love stories also, and professional stories also. Those were the three category we decided. How did we want to do it? We wanted to go and talk to people. We clearly knew that these were personal stories, but we knew that we wanted to create a bite-sized snackable content. Because again, the people who are sharing their stories have limited knowledge of podcasts, which means they still have not gained they gained that love for long form content. But in order to bring them in the habit, we wanted to create 5 minutes, 3 minute stories, 3 minutes episode, where they at least get in habit of listening to a podcast. That was the whole thing, and that gave birth to odd stories. Again, as I spoke about, told you this, the whole tonality is fun. It's relatable. But we knew we were doing it on the roads, which also means there's going to be road noise, which means our editing team had to do extra work to make sure they could clean the audio. But still, we were okay if there were some horns coming in the background. If we are doing in marines, there are sea waves. If someone could hear sea waves, it was okay because that's the concept. And we wanted to break the norm where people said only studios or only home studios could be used to do a podcast. So that was about odd stories. Now, when we speak about content strategy, when did we already spoke about target audience? We already spoke about content. But what should be the length of an episode? How much like content they should put on a weekly or a monthly basis? That is where the strategy again plays an important role. When it comes to interviews, guys, trust me, right now the magic number is 37, 38. I know there are people who love an interview which is more than an hour, but India is still not. This is more in US market. When you see Indian market, we still do not have that much of an attention span. So your golden number is not longer than 40 minutes when it comes to interviews. Okay, when it comes to solo, try and keep it from 8 to 12 or 13 minutes, lesser than 15 minutes if possible. Because you need to understand, like, because it is, if purely it is audio, it's only audio. Even for video, don't you want to keep your audience to make sure that they listen to you till the end? When someone sees na 59 minutes or 60 minutes or 1 hour 20 minutes, it suddenly means, oh, that's a lot of time they want me to invest on their content. Maybe I'll do that later. And think from the perspective, when do people listen to a podcast? When they're commuting, when they're doing home chores, when they're working out, jogging. And what is the ideal time there? Almost around 40 to 45 minutes probably. Workout is again 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. Commute is again, on ideally for a metro, it is almost like 50 minutes, kind of 45 minutes to 1 hour. So keep it easy for them. Don't make it like, it shouldn't be a difficult decision for your audience to take on. And again, for solo podcasts, at least keep it binge worthy for them. Okay, if there's one episode of 13 minutes, if they like you, they may go for another episode of 13 to 15 minutes. Binge is very important. They need to be hooked on your content. And then comes to schedule. At least try and make it weekly. I know I'm expecting a lot from you guys because it takes a lot to put out a weekly episode. But if you plan it properly, if you schedule it properly, it works. Please do not record the same week and edit the same week and put out the content on the same week unless your content is not topical. If your content is topical, then I understand you have to follow that strategy. Please batch record your episodes, batch edit them, and then put out. At least try and keep 3 to 4 episodes ready in advance if it's a weekly podcast. Daily is only for micropods or binge worthy short podcasts, which are like 3 to 5 minutes. Having said that, odd stories, which I just shared the cover out of, is a 3 to 5 minute podcast, but we also don't have that much of bandwidth, so we've made it twice daily. The episode is out every Wednesday and every Friday. Even we couldn't do that because it takes effort. It takes your team, and I have a team, people. I have team. Then also, because we do a lot of client work also, we know like we cannot give that much of time. So we've started as twice daily. Maybe at some point of time we will try and make it a daily thing. Again, eventually, these are the ideas which an expert, someone like me, who would like to give you. But having said that, it is eventually your choice. You can do what you want and you can change and alter things the way you want. But please have some strategy in place. Otherwise, yours would be another nth number of podcasts in some category which nobody knows about. Again, podcasts are not SEO friendly. That is what we'll cover in the marketing side also. But just putting it out there, podcasts are not SEO friendly. If someone writes a motivational podcast, your podcast will not magically appear. Anyway, there are other people who might appear, but it is difficult to do that. They are not SEO friendly. The only way to market them is with your own bandwidth, with your own platforms. We will talk about that a little more now because we are going to the marketing side of it. Again, in marketing, we will cover the strategy side of it. The launch plan is important, pre-launch, launch, and post-launch. Social media, your social media plays an important role, then little bit of PR. There are some free ways of doing PR which we will discuss today. When it comes to first and foremost marketing, let's discuss about the branding side of it. What is branding? You have a content in place, you have a concept in place, but how should your cover art look like? Because that's the first interaction on an audio app with which your unknown audience will have, or even your known audience will have. If you are also directing to someone to your podcast, the first thing they'll see is your cover art. So spend some time there, give some thought there. Your cover art also defines your color theme, your fonts, your entire theme of the podcast. So put some effort there. Then you decide your theme, which obviously becomes a part of your cover art. Your podcast music is very important because eventually that becomes your identificational property. Someone listens to, for example, for Odd Story and SSW, we genuinely spent a lot of time there. The moment that music plays, everybody, like, it's very easy for people to understand, okay, this is an Odd Stories story which is going to play. Or SSW, the people came back and saying, we love the music. Music is very important. Color scheme is very important because you going to incorporate that color scheme also in your social media. Fonts, again, very important. So either derive all of these from your current social media plan, from your current brand, or if you're creating something from scratch, then use these things on your social media so that people can identify. Because if it's a loner property, an individual isolated property or podcast, nobody will understand, figure out you doing that. No matter how much effort you put, nobody will figure out that it's happening. So please synchronize your social media with your podcast. That's the best way to do it. On the marketing side, as we discussed, we will talk about pre-launch, launch, and post-launch. Why is it very important? And the strategy side of it. So first, we will discuss about pre-launch. Again, we'll take examples here. What is a pre-launch? Pre-launch is when your content is already recorded, your 3-4 episodes are ready. Now you're ready to launch also, but you need to have a strategy there. How are you planning to do it? What is the idea behind it? I understand not all of you have a great following on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Forget about that. Right now, also, Odd Story has some 800 plus followers. But that is also enough to begin with. Sorry, someone was saying something. Okay, I think it must have been by mistake. Should I continue, guys? Just say a yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, since we were talking about social media platform, I told you, like, even Odd Story, which is my brand, has 800 plus followers. But we at least have 800 people. We can begin with them. At least we're not starting with zero. Then why not? So, first and foremost, decide two major social media platforms of yours. Someone told me here that they're a YouTuber, right? If you're a YouTuber, which means YouTube is one of your major platforms. The second platform again can be Instagram. But figure out if you can use all of them, brilliant. I understand some of you are individual creators. Again, something becomes very difficult to to record, to conceptualize it, to record, to edit, and to put together and to do social media again. But let's just say it, even if you create brilliant content, if you don't market with your own limited resource, again, nobody will get to know. So find at least two major platforms. For Odd Stories, we figured out it is Instagram. We don't use all the platforms, but a major platform is Instagram. Our content is designed for Instagram and LinkedIn. Then we repurpose on Twitter, and we repurpose the same content on YouTube as YT Shorts. Same content. For Simi said what? Her audience was both on Instagram and YouTube. She was very clear these were her major platforms. She had no, she still doesn't have a lot of, I would say, presence on LinkedIn. She has no presence on Twitter as well. So it was clear what we are doing is majorly for Instagram and YouTube. Now, when I say YouTube, she already had around more than 2 lakh followers on YouTube, and she had around 135K followers on Instagram. But if you check right now, the numbers have become huge. That 2 lakh has become more than 4.5 lakh on YouTube, and that 1.135K on Instagram is more than 220K on Instagram now, only and only through podcasting. Not only that, we also started a separate platform for podcasts with zero followers that also has more than 50K followers within, I would say, 7 months of launch. 7 months of launch, yes. Within 1 month we had more than 10K followers, and this was huge for Odd Story as well, because this has happened for the first time for us. Because if we knew all the ideas from day one, we would have done it for Odd Story also. But then we learned how to do that. So I'll tell you how we decided. When we decided she is doing it, we knew we had to create curiosity about the brand. We also knew that we had to make people understand that there's a pivot which is happening. I told you she was a beauty content creator. She was getting into a space which was all conversations though, but again, explicit conversations, which was totally different. So we decided of doing some trailers. Yes, in that case, I will give full credit to Simi. The trailers, Odd Story designed for her, which we shot also, we didn't go with that. She gave those two ideas and they were brilliant ideas. It worked in her favor. If you guys can go, Simi said, what is the page? You can see, I don't know if you can still see the trailers. It's just, you'll have to go down. So her first trailer was, because she was doing beauty content on YouTube, her trailer was that she walks in, everything is happening in 30 seconds. She walks in, there's a television which is having her talking about her beauty content. She picks up the television, takes it away, then she goes and brings out a microphone. That was her first trailer. Her second trailer was her intimate ballroom dancing with a guy, where the guy's face is not revealed, only her expressions are coming. And she used, we designed Instagram stories brilliantly, which was, Instagram stories were only and only happening on her page because her page had active audience, while this new page we were majorly focusing on these trailers which we had launched. Both the trailers did brilliantly well, and we used all the polls, we used countdown on Instagram stories to create a lot of hype before the launch. That happened for SSW, which I agree. If you, some of you will say that she already had an audience. It is not difficult for someone who already had an audience. I agree, but it is still difficult to sustain. It is still difficult to become number one on Apple Podcasts, number two on Spotify, number one on Amazon Music. It is still difficult, and to be continuously be number one for months, not weeks. It is difficult for someone like her also. Now, coming back to Odd Stories. Odd Stories also ranked within 48 hours of its launch. Yes, we were able to launch podcast within 48 hours. How did we manage to do that? Again, from our trailers. Now, what did we do for our trailer? Our first trailer was, we reached out to no matter how many content creators we knew, we asked them to do a small bite of, say, what is Odd Stories. That is where we begin with. And some of them were genuinely kind. They sent their clips, we clubbed it together, and we created our first Instagram reel, which was like, what is Odd Stories? Everybody's asking what is Odd Stories, and we closed it with coming soon. Then second thing what we did was, uh, There were people who were so nice on the streets of Bombay. They had shared brilliant stories with us. And they had brilliant hooks. There were hooks like someone saying ki my girlfriend called me, she asked me kahan hai, and I said teri aukaat ke bahar. That was a clip for us. We used all the hooks we could manage from our first 10-15 stories. We finalized the best hooks, we put them together, and then I came and explained what is happening. That was second reel of odd stories. Then the third reel, we also had put out to people telling like nobody is giving us stories. There was a specific cut where we mentioned like, hey, do you have a story? People, not everybody is comfortable coming on camera and using a microphone. A lot of people said no. So we made a cut of those no's, and then I came out sharing my story. That was our first episode. So already there was a lot of content which was created on a major platform, which was Instagram, which obviously we used on Odd Story. People were already keen on what is happening. I started getting WhatsApp messages. There were DMs from, yes, those 800 people. At least 15 people reached out to us saying, what are you doing? What's happening? They were from community and they were from Instagram community. That is how, with whatever limited resources you have, please work on a launch plan. Build that curiosity. Also, build an elevator pitch before you launch. There's another interesting thing which I would like to share, which is not there on the PPT, but I'll just share. When you're designing your content, at that point only, remember, initially before beginning this session, I asked some of you to share the objective. What is the end goal? Please write down the end goal of this podcast or any podcast you're launching, or any content for that matter you're launching. What is the end goal? What is the objective? Why are you doing that? And on that basis, create an elevator pitch. Trust me, you are your best promoter. You will be the first one to promote your content. And when you will promote yourself, eventually, if you're creating brilliant content, other people will join you. Your listeners will eventually become your evangelists. That will take some time. Till then, you're the one man army or one woman army. Take your jhanda out and start talking about your podcast. But try and make sure like you convert it into an elevator pitch of not more than 60 seconds. If you figure that out, because not everybody is going to give you time, create that elevator pitch. That will help you a lot when you're talking to people, explaining what do you do. I have one particular client of mine. He is brilliant in that. He's an average content creator when it comes to podcasts, and he knows that. He knows that he's still figuring out, his conversations are not brilliant. He has genuinely improved from his season 1 to season 3. They did their season 1 themselves. From season 2, Odd Story is helping them. There's a tremendous improvement in his delivery, in his conversation style. But he still knows that he's not someone like Simi Goraya for that matter. He knows that. But the way he promotes himself, he's a community strategist. You know what he says when he introduces himself? I'm a community strategist and a podcaster. My podcast is about how you can use marketing and community to grow your brand. Very clean, within 30-40 seconds, he has explained himself, he's explained his podcast. It should be that sharp. And people judging him on his skills is secondary, but how you put yourself out there, what is your confidence level to do that, is your first thing which is noticed. Okay, now, while you're driving your launch plan, I told you please try and use as many social media platforms as possible. It is Instagram, it is YouTube, be it LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever your basic audience is, that's your first major platform. And you create your content based on that platform's algorithm. Then, if you can't create specifically all platforms, it's okay, repurpose it. but find that major platform. If it's LinkedIn, we all know on LinkedIn, longer captions work. People want to read what you write, and then a static image also works. Video is, they're still picking on videos. So create content like that. On Instagram, we all know reels work. On YouTube, we all know shorts are working. On Twitter, it's just the magic in your basic one line which you can create. One important thing, which is a major magic trick for me, guys, start using it. I do it with all my one-on-one clients as well, is WhatsApp. Okay, we all have WhatsApp, and we all have at least 2000 to 5000 people on our WhatsApp. Just say yes if you agree with me. Say it out.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Correct? Perfect. We already have a community of 2000 to 5000 people. Are we tapping on that community? Is something which we need to think of when we are creating content. So, what you need to do is, someone is trying to say something. If not, please mute yourself. Okay, I think great. Okay, thank you so much. So, on your WhatsApp community, on my WhatsApp community, what kind of people do you have? You have your colleagues, you have your friends and family, you even have your domestic help, your dhobi wala on your contacts. Filter out the contact. When you've built your content strategy, you already know who your target audience is. Try and create a broadcast list of people who would be interested in your content, at least would like to listen to that kind of content. If it's a marketing content, if it's about digital marketing, then reach out to all the, I would say, marketing strategists, or reach out to all the startup owners who are trying to build their digital presence, or maybe to all the freelancers. Create that broadcast list, and a specific broadcast list. And then, whenever you have a podcast episode release, write a few lines which actually resonate with them, and send your podcast links to them. Don't send all the podcast links. This is JioSavan, this is Ghana, this is Apple, this is this is that. Of two major audio platform links where you would like to grow. If you want, some people also try and create a podcast because they want more footfall on their website, and they then embed their podcast on their website. If that is the case, then share your own brand's website link where someone can directly click and listen to the podcast. But share those links with your broadcast list, and there will be an immediate surge in numbers. Because initially, for your 5-10 episodes, these smartly created broadcast list people would definitely click and try and listen for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And if your content is genuinely engaging, then the whole of 38, 40 minutes of your content. This is one magic which always works, and it's free of cost, no money involved. Okay, this is difficult for you to read, but anyway, this is how we do it for our client. Your post launch plan. Now, what is your post launch plan? Your post launch plan, again, using the same social media platforms, including your community platforms like Instagram or Discord in some cases, or Telegram for some people. So, what you have to do is create your content bucket. For most of my clients, Instagram is their major page of creating content. Then we create a plan for them. If you notice, this is already a 7-day plan for Instagram. What is going to go on day one? What is going to go on day two? What is happening on day three? Majorly, what is happening on your episode drop day? What content is going on that day? Plan everything in advance before you launch. And then please stick to the plan. It's difficult, it's tiring, but there are a lot of ways with which you can do it. Then, what is your secondary platform? If it is LinkedIn, you can consistently do 4 LinkedIn posts in a week. You don't have to do 7 days of LinkedIn. Decide it. It could be 3, it could be 4 days. Then do it like that. Create your plan idea. If you're repurposing it, great, but your caption needs to be longer for LinkedIn. If you do the same Instagram caption on LinkedIn, it will not work. The audience is different. We know. Also, when you choose your social media platform, that also depends on where your audience is. For odd stories, we knew our audience will only and only be on Instagram because our audience is Gen Zs. We are getting stories from college kids to content creators. So our list is say from 18 to 30, 32, 35 max right now. They are majorly on Instagram, and secondary of them would be LinkedIn. But major, we know our audiences on Instagram. Our content style is also for Instagram. So that also, your target audience also plays an important role when you're selecting a platform. Now, anyway, your Instagram content will go on Facebook. If you click that one swipe on Instagram, like share all the content on Facebook. So it's going on Facebook. That's also sorted. Your WhatsApp broadcast list, very important. Not only that, there are people who have community on blogs, written blogs. There are people who have newsletters already. Even if the audience is of 150, 150 people, use that audience as well. Whenever there's an episode launch, if you don't share your newsletter on the same day, it's fine. Whatever day you share, talk about your episode there also. Talk about your podcast there also. I told you, you are your self promoter. You're your first promoter. Nobody else is going to do for you. Now, analytics, where Hubhopper plays a very important role as well, especially Hubhopper Pro, which is totally new. If you guys are using Hubhopper, try and switch to their paid plan of Hubhopper Pro, and I'll tell you why. Because your analytics are very important. You need to know what audio platforms people listen to your podcast on. I'll give you an idea. Someone said that they have made a podcast on Upanishads, right? That kind of spiritual content or religious content. If you guys check
Yes.
Ghana is number one on that kind of content. Ghana works very well for that kind of content. Then promote
Okay.
your then promote your Ghana link instead of your Apple link. Then Geo7 is the second platform where religious and spiritual content works very well. If it's totally spiritual, then even Spotify works. But figure out where is your content works. If it is religious and Hindi, Ghana is perfect. If it is religious and English, then maybe Spotify. Check
Okay.
where your audience comes from and then start promoting on that particular platform more.
Well, my analytics shows mostly from Apple Podcast and Spotify.
Then you have to see that whether you're actually putting on Ghana or not.
No,
See if
I'm
it
putting
is.
on Ghana, but I'm not getting too many hits on Ghana. That's
Okay.
what the
Is it
analytics says.
English? Is it Hindi?
English, completely English.
Then to Ghana won't work. Then obviously Spotify and Apple will work better. If it
Yeah,
is
that's what.
Hindi,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
if it is Hindi, then Ghana works better. If it is,
Okay.
I would say if it is religious, I'm sorry, if it is regional, then again, Ghana is also working, Geo7 is also working, Spotify is also picking up well there. But if it is purely English, then of course it has to be your Apple Podcast that works the best.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Thank
Okay,
hello.
you.
guys, let me just finish because we're already at 5:24, and then I'll take questions if that's all right. Is that okay? You can say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, great. Thank you. So, review your content strategy, what platforms are working, how much is your per episodic download. That also matters a lot because then you know what kind of content is working. What guest worked for your audience if it's an interview podcast? What content worked for your audience if it is solo podcast? When we were doing Simi Said What, we realized that her solo stories were working very well in comparison to her interview episodes. The reason was simple. I told you her stories were explicit. So then, first we thought that we'll do one story after 10 episodes. Then we changed the strategy. We started doing one story after every 4 episodes, at least. And at some places, especially around New Year's, we thought that we'll do one story, which is the closing of the year, and we launch also with her personal story only for the new year. So those are the strategic things which you need to decide based on your analytics. Try and go with a platform which gives you the best analytics. Hubhopper Pro works very well. Please try and figure out the best platform for you and try and do your content based on analytics. It's very, very important. Okay. So now speaking about analytics, on the basis of your analytics, you need to create your pitch document as well. Now, what is a pitch? If you guys are from marketing, you know what is a pitch. You create this PPT, nice PPT, just the way I've created, where you speak about your numbers. You talk about your numbers, you talk about your community power and your engagement as well. When I say community power and engagement, what I mean is we all know numbers for downloads are way lesser than numbers on a YouTube views or a reel views. Correct? So now, what is it that we can pitch to brands when it comes to community? You are building a tight knit community. That is what you will pitch. You may say that, okay, I have a community of 10,000 people, but this is the engagement of my community. You have to create case studies with, say, barter deals to begin with your own products to begin with, or your own services to begin with. Create those case studies. We are going to our favorite topic, which is everybody's favorite topic on how we monetize a podcast. I will quickly run through the methods of monetizing, and then we can also speak about some case studies there. Monetizing. Okay, we all know ad inserts, which happen on to a podcast. This works best if you work with a platform. Again, if you work with a platform like Hubhopper, they getting an ad on the basis of on per ad click. If you get something, someone wanted to say something. Okay. They getting an ad for you is way more easier than you getting those AdSense or ad clicks. It is difficult for someone who's doing it on individual level. So try and collaborate with a platform like Hubhopper. Number two, host read ads. Now, what are host read ads? Do you guys understood ads? Ads are not you doing the ads. Ads are like HDFC's ad, which is running through your show. It's always better if you do it with a platform, unless you have billions of followers, which hopefully eventually I wish it happens for all of you guys. So it's better that you collaborate with a platform and expect them to get you a monetization deal in which they also have their cut and you get a certain percentage, but chances of them getting something for you is way better than you getting it on your own. Number two is host read ads. Host read ads are wherein someone reaches out to you, some brand reaches out to you. For example, if I'm doing a podcast, a coffee brand reaches out to me and say, "Hey Neeti, why don't you talk about our new coffee brand or our new coffee flavor?" Then instead of another voiceover happening, I am doing the ad in my voice, where I probably take create a sound of that I'm sipping that coffee and talking about my experience with that coffee. Now this is not something which is forced. This is not, if the podcast is happening about Upanishad and suddenly an ad comes on HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank. This is a smart insertion, which also means when I say smart insertion, only those brands who resonate with your content you can reach out to them for host read ads. Also, ticket size of host read ads is very small. It could be somewhere about 300, 500, 1000 to 5000 to also 10,000 in some cases. So, based on your audience range, you can reach out to brands for this kind of a thing. This is a smart experiment to begin with. Because sponsorships may take time, this is slightly more easier. Or you can begin with a barter deal with this. You can say, hey, you share your product with me. Let me review your product on my podcast episode. Begin with that. Okay, now of course we discussed your community plays the most important role in monetizing. When I say community, how does your community help in? There are people who have a lot of individual consultants. They have their workshops, they have their one-on-one mentorship sessions, individual strategists or freelancers, they look for work, right? So they can talk about that in their podcast, in which is their CTA, which is their what is it that they expect out of their audience to do. So in that case, your community plays a very, very important role. Okay. On the other hand, there are people who sell their merchandise through their community. For example, if you know about What the Hell Navya, which was hosted by Navya Naveli Nanda, she actually spoke about her merchandise. So, for on the basis of every episode, she used to take out some T-shirts. She used to launch some T-shirts, and she used to spread it on her community and see if she could sell her merchandise. For SSW also, Simi said also we thought of certain merchandise, though we did not take that route, but we did decide of certain merchandise, which is again not a very difficult thing. If you do it smartly, I'll leave it there only for now. But yes, that's what you can do. Or you can sell your own individual skill, your workshops. You are a consultant in some way. You are someone who helps in personal branding. Please use your podcast to promote your services. Then again, platform deals. Platform deals is what Spotify exclusive podcasts are. This is a deal which SSW was offered on the fifth episode when we reached down to Spotify with our numbers. They gave us a positive response, but it was purely the uh, creator's decision. She did not want to take that deal up because let me tell you, while everybody expect that a Ranveer Alabatia must be getting 1 crore at least for 1 year of a contract, that's not the deal. That's not the thing. But there are people who may think, oh, creator only creators get those deals. No, that is not the scene. There are individual people who've also got deals. There's a podcast known as Indian Noah. Nikesh, he got a deal as an exclusive artist, and there were couple of more artists who got an exclusive deal from podcast. There was one Tamil podcast host. She got that deal, but that also meant that they created content straight for 3-4 years and then they got that deal. Let me tell you, numbers are not that fascinating right now. We are hoping that they will improve. But yes, this is also an opportunity which you guys can look for. But that also means that that cannot be your expectation. That may happen eventually if you are creating brilliant content. Now, speaking about sponsorship deals, that is also an interesting way to get monetization working for you. There are paid collabs, there are barter collabs as well. So that is what I was referring to. It's not important from day one, you will start getting uh, paid collabs. So you have to reach out to them and tell them, probably do a case study in the form of host read ad, which should result in certain numbers for them, and then you can expect them to sponsor one of your episodes or probably your series. So here also I'll quickly give you an example. When we started with Simi Said What, we did a couple of barter deals with the Soul Store and Sula Vineyards. Both these deals were from Odd Story to SSW. Now, how did we get those deals? So if you realize, the Soul Store is purely into clothing, right? So we reached out to them and we said, hey, we want to run a giveaway related to Simi said what, and would you be the sponsor for those gifts which are going to her community? So every day every week, whenever there used to be an episode drop, the same day we used to announce the giveaway as well. And whosoever used to answer, follow obviously the instructions. We all know how Instagram giveaway works. And whosoever used to do that, we used to pick out one winner, and that winner used to get the Soul Store's curated box. And of course, they used to share it on their stories, tagging Soul Store. Simi did a lot of content on stories, tagging Soul Store time and again to make sure the brand gets value out of it. With Sula Vineyard, we did a PR package. What was when the PR package was when the first season was finished. It was a successful season. We wanted to do a party related to that season, a success party to that. So we sent this nice PR packages to 30 to 40 content creators. The whole thing was curated with Sula Vineyards, and what we got for brand in return was on stories. These content creators were putting their unboxing. We all see those unboxing thing. They were unboxing it on their stories, tagging Sula Vineyards and Simi said what also. But those were barter deals. And in return for Sula Vineyards, because it was a video podcast, in some episodes we used to keep their wine bottles on this side as a brand integration. Or for Soul Store, in some of these episodes, Simi used to wear Soul Store's outfits, and even the guest used to wear Soul Store's outfits as a brand integration again. But these were all barter deals. For that, also, someone like her coming from 135K followers already before launching the podcast, for that, also, we had to do at least 6 to 7 episodes, show these brands the number, the engagement on our podcast dashboard, even on her YouTube, and then she started getting that kind of barter deals also, despite being getting so many paid collabs on her main page. For SSW, we still had to do a lot of things. Then comes the paid collabs. Now, when we speak about paid collabs, we got that also with her. That was from Truly Madly. It was a series deal of 8 episodes wherein the deliverables were clear. On the logo, Truly Madly, on our cover art, Truly Madly's logo would be there for those 8 episodes. Not only that, there will be an insertion by Simi for Truly Madly. She used to do a host read thing for Truly Madly. Not only that, there were credits which were given to Truly Madly in all the captions. A lot of details were being done there, but that was a paid deal for straight 8 episodes, which we did for Truly Madly, which also happened after she finished her first 15 episodes, purely spending money on her own. It was when she was releasing her season 2, that is when she got that deal. That when she was already charting the topping the charts. This is a mistake I do a lot of times. Topping the charts, that is when she got that deal. For Odd Stories also, Odd Stories is hardly 4 episode old, but we already have a roadmap when it comes to deals. I'll tell you how. The whole plan is, when we already have around 25 to 30 episodes, we will start reaching out to these events like Lollapalooza, to events like, say, a Xavier's Fest or a Jehan College Fest, wherein we will go and collaborate with them and create a booth for ourselves where, guys, someone has put on their microphone. Okay. Wherein we will reach out to them and we will ask them to come and share their stories, and we'll create a specific story, a specific series only for, say, a Xavier's Fest or something like that, which is definitely an engagement for them, for their students, because they're giving a platform for their students where their students can come out and share their stories, right? In collaboration with us. That is one of the ideas which we know we are going to tap eventually. I'll give you an example. We've just put 3 stories out, and yesterday only someone reached out to us. A brand reached out to us, and they said that they wanted to do their 3-minute story on odd stories. Of course, they didn't want to pay, which is okay. We are not expecting payment for first 50 episodes straight, which is fine. But that's a growth. Someone reached out on their own saying, hey, we would like to put out there our 3-minute brand story, how we incepted this particular brand, which we believe is unique in your podcast odd stories. That's a beginning. So eventually, then you guys understood we may look for paid gigs for event collabs also, paid gigs for brands also, but that's a far-fetched dream which we would like to do, but we're not concentrating that on day one. But that's just an idea which we wanted to give, which I wanted to give you, that we also right now also are thinking about our monetization goals. So when someone says, what's your objective? Please trust me, there needs to be 2 objectives. Your first objective should be your content objective. Your second objective, you may not share like me with all the people out there, but should be in your mind. How am I going to monetize? What is my monetization plan? How do I fit my content for monetization? What are the right brands I can reach out to? At least in your head, create a list of ideal brands you would like to reach out to. Please do that. Then after 10, 20, 30 episodes, when you think that you have a certain amount of community which can be beneficial to that brand, write a cold email. It's not that difficult. Write a cold email. DM to the brand on Instagram. DM to the brand on LinkedIn. What is going to happen? They may not open your email. They may not open your DMs. It's fine. DM to 100 people, at least 3 people will open. Even those 3 people don't turn out to be, but at least you are getting ready to take a no. Trust me, taking a no is very difficult, but when you do sales and marketing, you eventually learn. And I already learned thanks to my previous jobs. It's okay to now for them to say no, but this will only build your confidence. Your 150th reach may work out in your favor, but start doing it. Start doing it as soon as possible. Now we will talk about Hubhopper. I already mentioned about Hubhopper Pro, and I spoke to you about analytics, how important analytics are. I already told you. So there are 2 ways of defining a hosting platform for you. One is how easy it is for you to host your podcast there, and how great are the analytics. These are the 2 parameters on the basis of which you should decide your hosting platform. The best thing about Hubhopper is within on one click, you can reach out to all of these all of these audio directories, be it Google Podcasts, be it Spotify, be it Ghana, be it JioSaavn. They're all one click. And something like Listen Notes, which is brilliant for you because it's a podcast directory. This is the podcast which tells you where your podcast stands. You must be noticing that a lot of people say top 1% of global podcasts, top 3% of global podcasts. You know from where they get their details from? It's from listennotes.com. So you need to have your podcast there. And Hubhopper is giving you that option in one go. I clearly mentioned your UI UX plays a very, very important role. So you have to check the dashboard, how easy is for you to put out your content. And if it is easy for someone who's not a tech savvy, then please pick up that platform. If you notice, you can also create your audiograms, which obviously helps to promote on all social media platforms. This is the dashboard I'm talking about. You see like what is happening on all the platforms. What platform is working for you? Is it Spotify for this particular podcast? If you notice, it is Spotify right now. what is the listens this person is getting, this podcast is getting, and that too on day-to-day basis. These kind of stats really help you to create that pitch doc I'm talking about. Not only that, to rework on your content and your marketing strategy as well. See, detailed analytics are happening here. What devices people are using to listen to your podcast, what hours are working best for your podcast. This all helps you, okay, in this case, probably 12 p.m. it is the best. Then you know that your launch hours, when do you need to launch. Now, when I say why pro, and one second, I am not promoting pro only because I'm working with pro. This thing, what you saw, is from Odd Stories. I am using pro. That is why I'm showing you these stats. Okay. Now, there are a lot of paid platforms already there. One of my favorite before Hubhopper Pro was Buzzsprout. I genuinely used to enjoy them. But you see, the charges are slightly higher. Not only that, the upload hours are limited. Here, there is unlimited upload hours. The plan is less than $10 per month, which works very well for you. And not only that, there are so many other features which can help you. Of course, you shift from free to paid, there's no watermark. And why I took Hubhopper Pro and why I did not take basic Hubhopper, that was one reason. I don't want their artwork on my cover art because I that's my brand. I want it to be individually for my brand. While I give all due respect to Hubhopper Pro for hosting my platform, the another best thing what happened for me was in Hubhopper Pro, my one of the best experience was, as I told you, is one click. For Buzzsprout also, every time there's one click for Spotify, they never work for Indian platforms because obviously it's an international platform. There's one click for all the platforms, then read their instruction and then do it. Hubhopper, it is very simple, very easy, one click done. So that's why we were talking about Hubhopper. And another important thing, let me just stop sharing. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Guys, can you still see the screen or is it off now?
No, screen is not moved.
Great, awesome. So another one thing which Gautam, who's the founder of Hubhopper, he's been really sweet. Some of you already know Taleha, she's been very sweet. Srijini has been very sweet. They've also offered one thing here is if you guys join Hubhopper Pro right now, after this workshop, Srijini, can you put that link in the chat box, please? If you join it right now, you'll get a 10% discount. Srijini, you
Yeah, I
wanted
have
to say?
already put that on the chat.
Can
You
you
can
pin
refer.
that link if that's an option here?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Yeah.
Great. Or just put it again right now.
I have a question. Will this also work for the existing pro members for the next months?
That is a
Oh,
smart
yes,
question.
yes, 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 yes. It will work. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
great.
The next
She is
month.
the better person to tell me. I am someone who's using the platform only.
Yeah, but I have one tech question regarding the audiogram tool. I
Yeah.
don't know for.
Arpan,
Let's take that
take it.
Okay,
offline. Yeah, let's
sure,
take that
sure,
offline
no problem.
because I am not the right person to answer that question. So, guys, I'll quickly go on the questions. If there's anything I've missed, we can quickly do something here.
Hey, ma'am.
Wow, this. Okay. You have to introduce yourself and then quickly ask your question.
Hi, this is Yash here. Actually,
Hi,
I
Yash.
make content on health, nutrition, and fitness. So I wanted to ask you, like, how can I start with podcasting, like, in health fitness? Like, what platform should I start on?
So if you want to start a podcast, there's only one decision you need to take. Whether
Mm-hmm.
you want to do an audio podcast or a audio and video podcast. If you have a YouTube channel, please do an audio and video podcast. If you do not
Okay.
have a YouTube channel, that is all right. Uh, That is the first decision you need to take. Second thing is, how are you recording? What is the content? Is it solo, or is it a mix of, is it an interview based podcast? Are you doing it from home, or are you taking a help of a studio to record these are the few questions you need to answer. Once you
Okay.
answer these questions, it'll be very easy to you to figure out. And it's not like what platform. You need only one hosting platform. In this case, for example, Hubhopper is a hosting platform. So what
Mm-hmm.
you do is you use that platform. You sign up for that platform. From there, your podcast is distributed to all the platforms like Spotify, Apple, JioSaavn, Ghana, everywhere. So hosting platform is something you need to look for, and rest happens from there only, because hosting platforms helps you to generate an RSS feed. It's a link which you paste to other platforms. In Hubhopper Pro, it's one click, while in some cases you have to paste that link to those platforms, and that is how it happens. It's very simple. You just have to follow the instructions and it happens. Okay.
Hi,
Thank you.
Uh,
Neeti.
Hi,
I,
please introduce yourself.
I'm Gayatri Soni. So I just want to ask you, could you give me some suggestions about poetry podcast?
Okay, poetry podcast. You already have a podcast?
No.
Okay. There are a few great poetry podcasts. There's one with a creator named as Megha. I don't know. I don't remember the name right now. It's not coming, like it's not on the top of my head right now. Poetry podcast is beautiful. First and foremost, you need to decide whether it's Hindi or English. Please try and keep it bite sized, if you ask me, because it's poetry. It's only you, which means mostly it will be a solo podcast. Try and keep it really short. That's my suggestion for you. And rest, it's like, rest is everything on your content. If your content resonates with your audience, it will automatically grow. Now on the marketing side of the same thing, do some snippets of that on, again, your Instagram reels or YouTube shorts, or whatever way you do it. You can do some small static posts also. We all know there are so many brilliant brands who do static posts also when it comes to poetry. Yeah. So that's one way of doing it.
Hello, am I audible,
Hi.
ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Myself, myself Siddharth, ma'am.
Hmm. Go ahead.
Actually, ma'am, I made a podcast few days ago. Life is Utopia, and I
Oh, nice.
published. Okay, I published 3 episodes now. Now I am stuck with the thought that where will I go about this further? Cause in my podcast I go with poetry, a few quotes, and how to live a life. That's all about my podcast. So it is good to go with poetry and mix the quotes, or I will go with just poetry or some stories.
There is no harm in mixing the content also. But in your case, what you would have done before is you need to check with your immediate, again, your mocks. That is very important. You need to check with your immediate community. What do they like? It's very, very important. Go to them, ask them what do they like, share your samples with them, and see what feedback you get. Or, and 3 episodes is a very, very initial stage. Do around 10-15 episodes. Check your analytics. If you think you don't have the right kind of audience in your community, check your analytics. Even if it is a single digit or a two-digit number, that's all right. But check with them where, what is it that they are listening to, what is it that working for you, and then take the call.
But ma'am, how can I create a hook line that people will come again and listen me again? How can I create that hook line?
That's a really long conversation, which I don't think we can do it right now, but I can just give you a quick example. Your hooks are very important. For example, I would take an example of romantic poetry. Take care. Oh, the quotes that come out these days on Instagram, and so many people make reels on those same uh, reel audios, those quotes. See, what is the best line out of that, which actually will touch someone's heart? That is your hook line. Just a very, very quick way of giving it out to you.
Okay, ma'am, like
Yeah, I
kindness
do
is
feel the
work
same.
like hope. So I can put it on Instagram and can spread my news. If you wanna know about how kindness work, listen this podcast.
Yes, yes, of course. But make sure that it is touching at least someone's heart, your hook line.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Hi,
Yeah.
Neeti. This is
Hi,
Anuj.
Neeti.
Hi, may I ask a
One
question?
person at a time.
This is Anuj here. May I ask a question, please?
Okay, we'll go with Anuj and we will take three more questions, guys. Srijani, if that's all right with you.
Yes, but guys, also one request: kindly fill the feedback form.
Yeah,
That will be
please do
good.
that.
Right.
Please do that. Thank you. Anuj, go ahead.
Neeti, first of all, thank you. Absolutely wonderful workshop. So many insights. A step ahead of podcasting 101, which Hubhopper really does a lot. So thank you for a
Thank you.
lot of the content you've given in. I want to quickly ask, you mentioned something about podcasting and SEO is not working very well. I
Yes.
was wondering if a workaround that would be to transcribe your episodes and have that text on the website like you have I put it in the chat
I
as well. You
get
have
it. Yeah.
pod.link or pod page. If you have these websites which consolidate all podcast platforms and give you a microsite so you don't have your own individual domain name for your podcast. And if you can transcribe your episodes and put it
Correct.
there, and your SEO then works for your podcast website, and then that leads people to the link. Would that be a workaround? It is a bit tedious, but I'm sure it can be
It
worked
is
out.
very tedious, of course, but there are other ways to do it. So,
Hmm,
when I said SEO doesn't work, is there are few things only the on the written things SEO can work, right? Which
hmm.
could be your podcast title, which could be your podcast description, and which are your show notes, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, try and find out the keywords and try
Hmm.
and incorporate them in your podcast description and all. That's another
Right.
option for entire transcription. Of course, if
Right.
you think that there's a strong keyword which has been used in the conversation itself, then you can timestamp and put together like this is where I spoke about this particular topic.
Hmm.
Again, this is
Hmm.
another way of engaging your audience as well.
Sure.
Having said that, it's again very slow. This process is still like very slow. It works very best for someone like Neil Patel who already understands SEO inside and out.
Hmm.
Why I
Hmm.
say SEO doesn't work for people like you and me, because we are not the experts in that game. That's the only
Sure.
reason.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do host. I have a podcast which has been lying dormant for about a year. I host it on Hubhopper, and it's been an incredible platform. I would love to revive it, and which is why again I joined this workshop to get some more insights into how I could bring that back to life. But I'd love to know where I could get in touch with you independently, and then maybe I could consult you and I can bring that back on the airwaves.
That is brilliant. Shritini, how can I share my contact details? Can you help me?
Yeah, we can. We have a community group, right? We can share your email IDs and everything.
I'll also put it here in the chat box, the email
Yeah,
ID.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's also the Odd Story website if there is a
Yes,
contact
yes.
there that I could get in touch with you on.
Yeah, I've just, oh, wow. That's how I spell hello.
Is that a typo or is that okay? It's
It is
hello
a
at
typo. It
okay,
is a
okay, great,
typo.
great, good to know. Hello at oddstory.com. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Neeti. This was fantastic. I'm actually I switched over to my phone because I was driving and I didn't want to miss out on the second hour of
Oh,
the
that's
podcast,
really
but
sweet,
of the
Anuj.
workshop. But thank you, Hubhopper, as well. So yeah, I'll sign out and
Yes,
then you can take on
yes.
somebody else.
Kudos to Hubhopper to do it. We
Hi,
and the way they've done it really quickly. Sorry, guys. Let me give a shout out to Hubhopper. They've been extra sweet for this entire workshop. So please stay connected with them. I'm sure they'll bring you tremendous other sessions as well. I hope something soon with me as well, but other creators too who work very well in this industry. Please
hi,
be a
Neeti.
part of their community. Yeah, sure.
Hi,
Who's
hi,
this?
hi, Neeti. My name is Muruganand, and
Yeah.
I would like to know how would you make a medical podcast very very interesting, because it's such a dry topic and it's so tough
I
to
know.
engage people, right? So I'm a doctor, So I'm trying to see if I can communicate something to the, to my patients and to the general public. So there is
Hmm.
actually one doctor called Dr. Palniappan. If you see, he makes shots. He does it for 30 seconds, and he's not a podcaster, but then he gets the job done. So something similar to that, but a little more professional.
I
So how?
will
Yeah.
help you out right away. Um, so I get it when you say that your conversations would not be really interesting, but then there are two ways of figuring it out. What's your audience? Your niche is very clear. If it is for, you want to decode some medical terms or diseases and you would like to discuss with them, there are two ways of doing that. Make sure that the language you use is someone like me who can understand, or the audience here who've joined this workshop, they can understand. If they can understand the conversation, automatically half the battle is won. Okay, and make sure that there are not a lot of jargons, unless the jargons will make sense if it is only for, say, a doctor's community, or say for medical students community. So first find out who's your target audience. And I agree when you say it's very difficult for a doctor to make fun content, but there are doctors who are doing like, there's someone like Dr. Sid Warrior. He does it in the space of he's a neurologist, and then he does neurology and neurosurgery. He tries to mix surgery. He's a neurosurgeon, I'm sorry, and he does neurology and neurosurgeon. He tries to mix these two, and he has a podcast also. Check out his reels, he's great. Amit had joined this workshop. I'm not sure if Amit is still here. Please, Tech Stories, he does this podcast. Please listen to his podcast. His whole thing is to make technology easy for people to understand by drawing an analogy. His content is very well. That's another way of doing it, so that you make your content interesting. Drawing an analogy with something which is way more easier to understand and also way more relatable to understand.
Okay, another question is, what kind of audience should I engage with? Should it be with a local audience? See, I'm a Tamilian, so should I? Is it better to engage with Tamil audience, or should I speak in English for a global audience?
Again, something you need to go back to your drawing board and see what strategy is that you're looking for. You have
Right.
to see who is your end consumer, first set of end consumer. Is it that people who speak Tamil are the people who would connect with you more? For example, are they your patients in this case? If it is for your patients or those set of people, then yes, please go for Tamil. And if you think what you are dealing with is on a global level, then English can be the main language. But it's not like regional podcasts are not growing, they are growing. So please do not hesitate. If your thought process is majorly in Tamilian language, please go ahead with that. Sorry, go with Tamil language.
So ideally, a bilingual, a better job, if you are right.
Go for it. I do
Right.
English podcasts, Hindi plus English most of the times. With
Or
my
Tamil.
clients, I do
Yeah.
both. But
Uh-huh.
I am working on another original that is completely English.
Okay.
70% English though, but yeah.
Okay. Roger that. Thank you so much, Neeti. Nice talking
Thank
to you.
you.
Yeah,
Same here.
Neeti and Banu.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Neeti. Wonderful session, by the way. Thank you for the insight. So I do a
Thank you.
podcast in Telugu from Hyderabad.
Nice. Okay.
So initially, I started with the name called Telugu Sanchari, so which is like a name with the who's called a traveler kind of a thing. Sanchari is the one who goes around.
Yeah.
So initially, what I did is like I did a time travel kind of a nostalgia thing for the 10 episodes. So I have around 3,000 listens.
Okay. That's
Uh,
great.
but my core intention was to do a travel series continuously for a very long
Hmm.
time.
Okay.
So I just would like to know what's your take on the traveling kind of a podcast? What would you suggest, and any bit of points you can put into that?
Of course. I don't know if you know about Musafir stories. That is
Yes,
somewhere in the, yeah, that's somewhere in the travel space. What I would
yeah,
suggest is don't try, and if it's a solo podcast, which I'm assuming in this case it will be, don't
yes,
make
it
it
is.
too don't make it too long. Try and make it around 8 to 10 minutes uh,
Oh,
of the content, try and give certain recommendations also, and the whole idea is try and paint pictures of the places you're going to talk about with your content, with the tonality and the language you're using. Maybe some places you can put some SFX also, sound effects also, to make it interesting. Another important
Mm-hmm.
thing is take out some audios out of it and then
Okay.
convert it into reels by using, if you can use your own content there, like I'm sure if you visited to those places, you must have taken
Yeah.
some videos and pictures. stitch
Yeah.
your uh, audio Stitch your audio with those images or those videos of yours, and make reels also out of that. That'll drive some traffic to your content.
Okay. Okay. So basically, you want me to get into the more Instagram to promote these platform.
Instagram, I'm saying, because we need to bring some level of visualization as well. If you are,
Exactly.
yeah, if you are, but you need to decide your platform. I'm just saying that it could be LinkedIn also with pictures.
Okay.
But what I'm
Okay.
trying to say is keep bring some element of visualization, say a 30 seconds,
Okay.
40 second audiograms, and then that drives people to, if they like your content, they will try to listen to the whole 8 to 10 minutes of your narrative.
Okay, just one more small thing. So we're actually two guys. So the other guy who does is a devotional podcast. Exactly, to be very precise, on Shivaratri, he has been on spot hash one podcast on the day of Shivaratri and the next day.
Okay.
So any particular platform you want to check the stats and to be more concentrated for the devotional content?
Stats, though, you always see on your hosting platform. So see what hosting platform are you using. Uh,
Okay.
that is the only reason I request for paid platforms. The
Okay.
reason is very simple. It's just because of the paid platforms, your stats are very clear. You get sharper stats, which you don't get on
Okay.
free platforms. So I think that's the best way to find out where it works. And if you want generic stats where devotional podcasts work, I already told you, if it is Hindi and religious content, then Ghana works very well. Even
Okay.
Spotify is picking up, and JioSavan works better. If it is English and general on spiritualism, then Apple Podcast works the best, and number two is Spotify.
This is more of a Sanskrit and Telugu. Possibly I should check on to Ghana then. What you say that?
Yes. They are good with regional content as well. So check with them.
Oh,
Guys, we're
okay. Thank
going
you.
to
Hi, Niti,
wrap
can I
up.
ask a question? Maybe the last one, probably. This
Yeah,
is
that'll be
unfair here.
great.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
will wrap it up after that.
right.
I am the part of the community, Hubhopper community. If there's anything, you can always drop in there. I'll try and answer you guys. Go
Thank you
ahead,
so
Raj.
much. Yeah. So I think my question is, like I speak multiple languages, right?
Right.
And I'm also a trained voiceover guy. But having
Ah,
said so, in terms of if I look at, a particular, should I have, if I'm going through a particular theme, right? Should I do the topic in multiple languages, the same topic? Will that cut ice, or do I need to have a separate category or a separate theme altogether? For example, if I'm doing a
mhm.
story on entrepreneurs, right? So
Okay.
on entrepreneurs, if I'm doing one in English, maybe one in Hindi, and again one in, say, Telugu or
Hmm.
Punjabi or whatever it is, right? So
Yeah.
can I do that with the same topic, or is it going to confuse the audience?
It's not it's not going to confuse the audience. You can do that, but I would suggest that focus on one language to begin with. Set that podcast up, because we all know it. A lot of people already have their podcast. They are a part of your community. Please talk to them, and you'll understand the effort that someone needs to put out to create one podcast at a time. Work on that particular podcast. For example, I'll give you an example. Now, Wondery does brand wars. They first started with in English, okay, and now they've created specific Hindi content for Indian audiences, but they did not do it from day one. So that's what I'm trying to say. Establish your content in one language, then of course you can do it other languages also. It's not that you can't, but try and do with one language. See how the platform behaves, see how good you are with consistency, because that's the key. Why I didn't say it today, I don't know. But guys, consistency is the key. So do figure that out and then see if you can sustain it with other languages. There's no harm in doing multiple languages.
Yeah. Thank you, Neeti. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you for your participation. It was lovely, lovely having you all. Please do drop your feedback if you like the workshop. And if there's anything which I missed out on, you can always put in the community or in the form itself. Then we'll try and put together another workshop based on that particular topic. Once again, thank you so much for spending your Saturday evening with me. Bye bye. Take care. Follow Earth Story on Instagram. It's AUDSTORY. We do a lot of content on how you can grow your podcast and how you can become a better podcast host. So we do it in the form of reels as well. So maybe that'll be helpful for some of you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great Saturday. Cheers.
Hello.
Have a great Saturday, all. Bye.
Great Saturday.